is up, everybody? Welcome to Paper Pauper Plays, and today we are going to be unboxing Mono Black Control. So to start things off, I ordered my deck list from cardkingdom.com. I went ahead and got the Ultimate Guard Boulder, which is what we're going to be putting all of our Pauper decks in every video that ends up coming out. Really good deck box. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, let me start off with taking out all of the packing peanuts that are in here. Alrighty, here we are. So let's go ahead and get this bad boy open. Now, just as a little note, because I feel like there's going to be some unboxing enthusiasts who are going to throw a fit if I am not just honest about it. I have already recorded this video, but the webcam did not record. I don't know why. It stopped recording halfway through and I didn't realize it. So these may be repackaged. There might be double tape here. Let it go. Let it go. Let's go and unpack this first set of cards here. Let's take a look at the 2/2 bear token that Card Kingdom has so graciously made for us. And let's go ahead and talk about the first card in this deck, the main win con. Oh, and also, I forgot to mention, I'm gonna be sleeving these as we go along with Dragon Shield black matte sleeves. Mono Black Control. The purpose of Mono Black Control is to make the game take longer than it should, make your opponent sacrifice their things, and just kind of give them a really hard time with everything that they're doing. This is our main win condition here, Gray Merchant of Asphodel. What he does is when he enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life, where X is your devotion to black, and you gain life equal to the life lost this way. Now, what devotion is when you have creatures on the field, it refers to how many black mana every creature has, or permanents actually. Your permanents on the field that have black mana in their mana values. So if you have Gary here and you have another creature with also 2 black mana, then X would be 4. So he's our main win con. We're just trying to get him out. We're trying to get out a bunch of guys that kind of control our opponent, and we're trying to gain life as they lose life. Here we have Duress, which is actually a sideboard card. Duress, target opponent reveals his or her hand, and you choose a non-creature, non-land card from it. That player discards that card. So this card is basically for control hate. Decks that you're facing up against that may have cards that would take out your Gray Merchant of Asphodel. Maybe like you wait turn 6 to play this so you could duress them on their turn, take out their counter spell so that you can play Gray. Or you can get information of when you can play Gray. We're just looking at sideboard cards right now. Unexpected Fangs. Put a 1/1 counter on a lifelink counter creature you control. So this can go on any of your creatures, just makes them +1/+1, and gives them lifelink so you can gain life every time they do damage. Couple applications for that we'll go into. We got 2 copies of those. So for those of you who don't know what sideboards are, when you're playing against an opponent, sideboards are basically 15 extra cards on the side of your deck that, in between matches, if you feel like you're in a losing matchup or you need to answer something specifically, this allows you to swap cards out. So we'll go and put those over to the side because they are the sideboard cards. Here's the main board card, Chittering Rats. Another big part of what makes this a control deck. Chittering Rats is 2 black mana, 1 colorless. When it comes into play, target opponent puts a card from his or her hand on top of his or her library. So this card is really good against people who are trying to top deck to get an answer for whatever it is that you're doing. This card really slows down the momentum of them. Really, the only thing that counteracts this card are cards like Brainstorm and Preordained, cards that basically allow the opponent to look at the top card library and put it to the bottom and draw a card. That's kind of the only answer to this, because otherwise, if the opponent doesn't have ways of digging through their deck, this is gonna be the enemy of their existence, because they're just putting back the same card that they keep drawing, assuming they're not playing it. All right, we have 1 copy of Unearthed Main, a reanimate effect. So 1 black mana, return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. This has cycling 2, sorcery speed, not that bad, just 1 in main. We have some other reanimate spells in the sideboard, but that way you can just get back something like Crypt Rats or Chittering Rats, and we'll look over Crypt Rats when we run into it. Sign in Blood. 2 black mana, target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. Very cool theming of a card. You know, drawing cards in Magic is supposed to be the equivalent of a wizard gaining knowledge about whatever it is that they're doing, whatever they're studying. So yeah, so you draw 2 cards, lose 2 life. Another reason for Grey Merchant of Asphodel in this deck to be the win con is because there are some cards in here that do damage to you, so he kind of negates that and brings you back up to a healthy life total. Kumbaj Witches. This is an uncommon printing of the original Kumbaj Witches in Pauper. As long as a card has been printed common at least once, it is Pauper legal. The rarity of Magic cards, you know, when Wizards is creating rarity, it's in relation to the set itself, not necessarily like, oh, we need to make this card common for Pauper. This reprinting came out, it's because they didn't want this reprinting to be common. They wanted it to be a little more scarce. Anyways, so that's why this is an uncommon version, but because it's been common in the past, that's why it is Pauper legal. Kumbaj Witches is a 1/3. Once again, 2 black mana for that good devotion. Deals 1 damage to a target and 1 damage to any target of an opponent's choice. So you tap it. Let's say your opponent has blockers. This is a way for you to get damage off onto your opponent without being blocked. Additionally, if your opponent has any 1/1s on the field, this is a good way to ping them. And the awesome thing is that your opponent gets to ping something back, and they more than likely are just gonna ping you because nothing in our deck dies to 1 damage. We do have Crypt Rats' deck, which is a 1/1, but again, I'll get into that when we run into him. But everything else's deck will survive the 1 damage, but your opponent's deck won't always, right? Fairies are really popular, and most fairies are 1/1s. We have Thorn of the Black Rose, 4 mana human assassin with Death Touch, meaning that any damage that this card does to another creature will automatically kill it. It doesn't matter if this is 1 damage and the opponent has 20 health on their creature, or 20 defense or whatever. This will kill it on contact. And when it enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. Monarch is an interesting mechanic where at your end step, you get to draw a card, and if an opponent deals combat damage to you with a creature, then they become the Monarch. So it's an emblem that goes between you and your opponent. Monarch is pretty popular in Pauper. This comes out, you become the Monarch, and it basically just allows you to draw cards, just kind of helps you look for your engine. All right, so we got Cast down here, which is just a destroy target non-legendary creature. So this card will hit every creature in Pauper. Legendary creatures are usually only found in other formats because they're higher rarities. Defile. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn for each swamp you control. So this isn't damage, reducing their health to 0, which is different. Some creatures are indestructible, meaning that they cannot take damage, but if their defense goes down to 0, they still die. So this deals with indestructible creatures. Additionally, this is only 1 mana, and it's for each swamp. And, you know, I mean, this is a monocolored deck, so that's not hard to hit, right? You know, turn 5, you can defile a creature for -5/-5, which is huge. You know, this takes out Gurmag Angler pretty easily, other big creatures that your opponent might be playing. So I do know that one of these is sideboard, so I'm gonna go ahead and put them in the sideboard. We play 3 in main. This deck list will be down in the description below, so you guys can purchase it yourself. But this deck list is also not final. There's plenty of iterations of this deck, so, you know, please feel free to browse around and find a version that you like. You know, this deck is completely modular because mono black is really easy to build with. So Divest. So this is main board. Target player reveals his or her hand. You choose an artifact or creature card from it, and that player discards that card. So this is a creature version of Duress. This is has a little bit more practical use in Pauper, because a lot of Pauper decks are more creature heavy than in other formats, and artifact decks are huge right now, right? Affinity is probably the most popular deck in Magic right now, also like Rakdos artifacts. And so this can actually target artifact lands. So you could take lands out of your opponent's hand if they have an artifact land with this deck. 3 of those in main. Good little turn 1 card. We don't have any other turn 1s in this deck, so this is a good little thing to play on turn 1 if you're not playing a tap land. Bazooka Bog enters the battlefield tapped. Enters the battlefield, exile all cards from target player's graveyard. Really good main board graveyard hate. There's a lot of decks that have like Faithless Looting, which has flashback, or Chainer's Edict, which has flashback. Suffocating Fumes. We have 2 of these in main, 1 of these in sideboard. A very popular card in Pauper. A lot of decks will splash black specifically for this card because it's a board wipe, right? There's a lot of creatures in Pauper that are 1/1s, elves, tokens, fairies. This can wipe out an entire board very frequently. So when 2 of them in main, 1 of them inside, also has cycling 2. So if it's not needed at the moment, you can spend 2 mana and draw a different card. You can put it in the graveyard to you know, change it out, which is also really good. Guess Verdict, 2 black mana, target player sacrifices a creature in hand and loses 1 life. So a lot of mono black decks run Chainer's Edict. Chainer's Edict is also a target player sacrifices a creature, but has flashback, which means while it's in your graveyard, you can spend 7 mana to cast it from your graveyard. My only problem with Chainer's Edict is that it's sorcery. Kiln Fiend is really popular in the meta right now, and for me, I would rather have my opponent blow all of their, you know, pump spells and whatnot, to pump up their Kill Fiend, and then I kill it. That's kind of my point of it. And the other thing too is that this card gets around Apostle's Blessing because it's target player sacrifices a creature. So you can't give Kill Fiend protection from black from this because I'm not even targeting it. So that's what makes this card really good. And they also lose life, right? Like it pings them, which is nice. Also just love the art on this card. It for some reason, I don't know what it is, but it just makes me think of Yorick from League of Legends. I don't know. All right, so we're going into second package here. Oh, 2 of those are sideboard, by the way. Phyrexian Rager, the 10th edition version. A couple different printings of this. I like this printing a lot. I just like that it's like bright and colorful. Kind of looks like Dr. Eggman. Comes into play, draws a card, loses 1 life. So you do lose a life on this card. It's only a 2/2, not super strong, but it cycles itself, right? You get a body on the field. It takes 1 life, which isn't that big of a deal, but you get to draw a card, which is really, really good. This is basically a 4-copy staple in all versions of this deck, because black does not have crazy amounts of draw cards like blue does. Blue is really strong right now because of Brainstorm and Preordain and all these cards that just do all this stuff. So black has to keep up a little bit, and that's basically what this card does. It allows you to draw a card, puts a body on the field. Nihil Spellbomb, we're looking at another sideboard card. Graveyard Hate. You sacrifice Nihil Spellbomb, exile all cards from target player's graveyard. When it's put in the graveyard from battlefield, you may pay black if you do draw a card. So what's cool is you put this on the field turn 1. Your opponent starts to put things in your graveyard, and when you see something that they may want to return, you just sack it, pay it black, and it replaces itself. This card's extremely good. Alongside with Relic of Progenesis. Relic of Progenesis is very, very similar to this. I think Relic, you have to pay 1 to sack it, and then you draw a card. Like it's all 1 activated ability, but I don't remember. Either is fine. You know, they serve the same purpose. Debt to the Kami. I always feel like when I see this art from far away, I see a spider. Do you guys see a spider? Like this is a spider butt, and this little part in the mountain here is like its like face, but and then like these pointy sections, the mountains, are its legs. Do you guys see that? Choose one. Target opponent exiles a creature they control, or target opponent exiles an enchantment they control. Enchantment hate, always good. There's plenty of enchantments in Pauper. But again, this also exiles a creature that your opponent controls, but it's targeting the opponent, not the creature. So this kills creatures with hexproof, and they can't be protected from it. They can be blinked. Your opponent can ephemerate it. They can ephemerate, the creature goes into exile. Debt to the Kami would resolve. After this resolves, the creature would come back at end step. So that's the only way you can really deal with it. Reaping the Graves. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand with Storm. So what Storm is, every time you cast a spell on your turn, you get a Storm counter. If you were to cast a couple kill spells, maybe you drop a Divest on a turn, and then you maybe play a creature, you know, then you have, like, let's say Storm 4. So what that means is that this would recast 4 times. So if your opponent wants to counter it, they can counter it the first time, but then it still casts again another 3 times. And it basically just refills any creatures that have died from your graveyard into your hand. Just a one of, you know, maybe your opponent's playing a lot of kill spells himself and you can't really get your devotion for Gary. This kind of helps that out. Tendrils of Corruption, another sideboard card. Tendrils of Corruption deals X damage to target creature, and you gain X life where X is number of swamps you control. A good 4 mana spell. This can kill big creatures that your opponent are playing, and you gain life, right? And the other thing too is it's not damage that you deal, right? So like you cast this on a creature, even if you're only dealing 2 damage to a creature, this will still gain you 5 health because it's the amount of swamps you control, not the damage dealt. So bear in mind, if you are not doing something on your turn 1 and you have plenty of mana in hand, you know, you could cycle this. Put a swamp down in the field and you could trade this out to draw a card. Cycle lands are very popular in Pauper. Crypt Rats, there he is. We mentioned you a couple times. So Crypt Rats is a really good card because it board wipes for however much mana you have. You play this for 3 mana. X Crypt Rats deals X damage to each creature and each player spend only black mana on X. So if you are up in life, maybe your opponent's at 10 and you're at 15, you could play this, and if you have 10 mana, you just kill them. You have 15 life, so you live the 10 damage. It wipes all the creatures on both boards, including itself, and you kill your opponent. So yeah, really good card. Additionally, although it will kill itself if you just tap 1 black mana, it's a good board wipe for small creatures, because it doesn't hit ours. All of our creatures have 2 to 3 toughness or more. So if you do sack this for 1 and you kill all of your opponent's fairies or elves or tokens, all of our stuff lives. Just a really good card. We play 2 of those in main. Some decks play 4, some decks play 1. And then the rest of these are swamps. So here's a little jump cut. This is why I didn't stop recording. I just finished sleeving all of the swamps, but we actually have 2 more lands in this deck. We have 2 Witch's Cottages, which tap for swamp. Witch Cottage enters the battlefield unless you control 3 or more swamps. And when Witch's Cottage enters the battlefield, if it enters untapped, you may put target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. So if your Grey Merchant gets countered, you could drop Witch's Cottage, and then you can return him to your hand. But it's a good card to just, you know, bring back your Chittering Rats to keep messing with your opponent and whatnot. It's just a good land to have, so we're running 2 of those. So that is mono black control for Pauper. Like I said, it's a pretty modular deck list. You can find plenty of others on the internet that have, you know, different types of kill spells or whatnot, depending on what you're doing at your local game store. You know, maybe you want more artifact hate, or maybe you want more answers for control. You can get those deck lists and mess around with it. So we're gonna go ahead and put the deck in the boulder, as I said. We're gonna use that bear token as a card divider for now until I get a card divider. The sideboard in the back, and then we're gonna go ahead and put this on there like that. Perfect. So this deck list will be in the description down below, as previously mentioned, alongside the playlist of my other deck techs that I've done on this channel. So please make sure to press the subscribe button to see more deck techs in the future, and thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.